Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of Getting In, a College Coach Conversation. I'm Sally Ganga with College Coach. For my second and third segments, I'll be talking with my colleague Molly O'Connor. She's a member of our client services team. And we'll also be joined by Michael Yeager, who is another one of my colleagues, but he is a college admissions consultant like myself, and who also worked not just at admissions, but as a college counselor, also like myself. We'll be using our various backgrounds and perspectives to look at whether and when to hire a private advisor to help with college applications, some myths around those advisors, and whether to disclose to your school counselor. But for my first segment, for those of you who are checking this out on YouTube or watching the video, Chrissy Form is here with me. She's one of our college finance experts here at Bright Horizons College Coach, and she'll be giving you the top 10 reasons you might want to use a college finance coach to help with paying for college. And I'll just give a hint. They can be helpful, or I should say this to you, Chrissy. You can be helpful even if the families will not qualify for need-based aid.
You are so
Correct?
right. Yes, you're very correct. Yep, we will go into that in my top 10 list. Absolutely.
Yes, yes. I just always think because it's one of the first things when I'm talking to a family, they say, "Well, we're not going to qualify for, based
Yeah,
on our income." And I'm like, "Oh, however,
right.
our people can still be of assistance to you."
Right.
So yeah, why don't you go ahead? I know you have a top 10, like David Letterman, probably a lot less funny, but that's okay.
It's a lot
Um,
less funny, but a lot
yeah,
more helpful,
but
hopefully.
yeah, exactly. Like actually helpful information. So why don't you go ahead
Right.
and dive right in?
Yeah, and I just wanted to start before I did the top 10 list, Sally, and just say that, I mean, a couple of things if you're searching for a college finance coach is really make sure if that person has actual experience working with families, like if they've had experience working in a financial aid office at a
Hmm.
college, how many years have they done that? All of the coaches at College Coach, we have all worked decades, some of us in financial aid offices before we came to coach families. So I think knowing how many years of experience your coach has and if they've actually worked in a financial aid office and they haven't just been a tax person or an accountant or something who, can do this on the side. So I think that can be really important too when you're looking at working with a college financial coach. Um, but yeah, just in terms of so I kind of put together top 10 reasons to use a college financial coach. One of them, so you had kind of mentioned if you don't qualify for, any financial aid, we can still help. We can obviously help if you do qualify for financial aid. So that's one of the reasons is we can really help families better understand if they have eligibility for need-based aid. And we can base it on actual formulas that they use in these financial aid applications. So when you're talking about the financial aid applications, the FAFSA, there's another one called the CSS profile. We can really help guide parents through those applications. There are some nuances that go into those that sometimes a lot of families have questions about. There's questions about income and what kind of income qualifies, or assets and what assets qualify, how those can affect financial aid eligibility, how much those can affect it. So I think just having a coach that a financial coach can really help you understand just the ins and outs of the financial aid applications themselves and based on conversations with the actual family, what do we think they might qualify for just in
Hmm.
terms of, are you going to qualify for anything? Are you not? If you are, what might that look like at certain schools?
Hmm.
Um, so obviously we can't tell them what a school would offer them, but we can certainly help kind of get them in a ballpark of what that might look like.
And I do want to chime in here. I've heard people who make, like, I know, I was talking to a woman who made 120,000 and she said, "I'm not going to qualify." And I said, "Some of the private
Yeah,
colleges are 70,000. They're not going to expect you, like,
right.
some of the most expensive schools are also the wealthiest, and you might
Yeah,
get a great package. Obviously, no
yeah,
guarantee, but like
yeah.
it's worth it to apply, but
And it's
don't
just
assume."
there's so many rumors and everything out there. Oh, I
Hmm.
talked to my next door neighbor and her daughter didn't qualify, so we're not going to qualify, or we work in the same
Right.
company. There's just, I mean, it's so much better if you can get it firsthand information from somebody who knows the ins and outs of that. So I think that's a really great reason to, or a good benefit, I guess.
Hmm.
Um, Another one is understanding, pretty much you have to understand really that everybody pays for college. There are not a lot of families that get completely free money to go to college. Some of them might get free tuition based on income, but they still end up having to pay for housing and food and
Hmm.
things like that. So at some point, really everyone pays, whether you're borrowing loans or whether you're paying it now. We can really help identify the best uses of those resources to help pay and the timing of those resources. So I do have parents that ask all the time, okay, we do have savings. We do have a 529 college savings plan. When is the best time to use that? Parents say, hey, I do have money in a stock market, or I have money in a retirement plan. Is it better to borrow that money, to borrow right now with the interest rates are low? Should we keep that money in the stock market? Should we keep that money in our savings account? When's a good time to do that? How does it work drawing money out of a 529? So, I mean, there again are a lot of ins and outs to just even using basic plans like a 529. If your child moves off campus and you're not paying the school directly for housing, can you still use that money for housing and food? And so we can really kind of help identify how's based on your specific information and your assets and the things that you have available to help pay. When's the best time to use that? Is there something else we should be using instead? And just find the best ways to get help paying based on their specific situation.
Mm-hmm.
Another reason we can help with private scholarships. So as you were saying, families that maybe they don't qualify for any need-based aid based on their income. Well, we can certainly help with private scholarships and give them tips and tricks for searching the websites to use. So as you may know, Sally, there's probably 2 million scholarships, private scholarships and fellowships that are available in the United States at any given point for students to apply for. That is super overwhelming to students. It can be super stressful. I talk with a lot of students that go, yeah, it's like TikTok. You go into a rabbit hole. So, 4 hours later, you start this process, and 4 hours later, you come up, you haven't really gone anywhere, you haven't
Mm-hmm.
found anything, and you don't want to do it anymore. So,
Right.
one of the things we can do is really make that simple for them. We can tell them some good websites. We vet these websites, and as a finance coach, that's one of our jobs, is to really figure out what are the best places to look for scholarships. How do you search for scholarships? What kinds of scholarships can you search for? Can you search based on hobbies? Can you search based on your major? There's so many different ways to find scholarships, and so that's really where, again, we can come in very handy for families who, even if you don't qualify for need-based financial aid, anybody can apply for private scholarships. And so we can really break that down into a much more manageable, less stressful experience, I think. Number 4 reason to work with a college finance coach. I can't talk, finance coach. Again, this is kind of what I said in the first sentence, or the first quote, but we can help with questions related to financial aid applications and the types of aid available. So there are some schools that use 2 financial aid applications and not just 1. And so we can talk families through, which schools require that? What other information do they require? But the other thing that can be really confusing is just the aid that's available. So there's a lot of families that don't understand your child might be eligible for work study. So even though they don't get need-based aid, and that's considered a need-based aid, they could still have some student employment on campus. These applications, we know them inside and out. We understand the financial aid that's available to families, either from the school, from the government, the state government, the federal government. So we know we can help families with situations regardless if you're married, if you're single, if you've just been divorced, if you've had a deceased parent. There's so many nuances to filling out these applications based on family situations. And
Mm-hmm.
so again, we can really walk families through that process. Talk about, what did you get awarded? What did the school offer you after all of this is said and done? What were you offered? Can we help you decipher that? So we can really talk through the different types of aid that are available and what that means when schools offer it.
Mm-hmm.
Number 5, we provide, the great thing is we have unbiased opinions. So especially at College Coach, we don't have any school in mind for your child.
Mm-hmm.
We're an outside resource. So sometimes parents get so close to the situation with their child, and their child doesn't want to discuss it anymore with their parents because their parents really, hey, I'm an alumni at this school XYZ, so why don't you go there? Or this school is really close to home. We'd like to keep you close to home. Why don't you go there? But with us, we don't have any of that. We have none of those feelings for the student, for the family. We know them, we work with them, but we can really give an unbiased opinion towards, hey, this one might be a good choice because of this. This one, here's the sticker price, but this is what you might have to pay. So it's our job to really give unbiased information so you guys as a family can make a more informed decision we don't have any emotion involved. So sometimes it's really great for families and students to talk with a college finance coach just to get more kind of outsider information.
Yeah, I had a student once who was going to make what I thought was going to be a catastrophic decision to attend a school closer to home,
Hmm.
but that was going to require him to take out an additional 30,000 a year in loans. So
Uh-huh.
he was going to graduate with over 100,000 in loans. And the school that was a little farther away, he would have graduated with around 30,000, even with
Yeah.
housing and transportation. It was going to
Yeah.
be so much cheaper. And I was like,
Yeah.
that's a bad idea. I mean, I
Yeah.
just, and I think if he hadn't talked to me and I really encouraged him to talk to a trusted mentor that he had, I think that's the decision he would have ended up making because that's what his
Yeah.
mother was pushing him towards because she wanted him
Yeah.
close,
Right.
you know?
And we do, I get a lot of families who get on the phone and say, the parents will say, our child won't listen to us. They don't want to talk to us about it. They don't want
Hmm.
to listen. So we do end up talking directly to the student and saying, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? Well, what about
Hmm.
paying back all these student loans? Do you
Right.
know what that's going to look like in 4 years? What does that
Hmm.
payment look like? How does that fit in your budget? So there's things again that families may not think about, and that's kind of brings me, which is a good segue into my
Hmm.
seventh tip, is that we really help families look at the bigger picture beyond just the first year. So where there are so many students that are just, I just need to get into this school. They don't look at what's
Hmm.
going to happen 4 years later when you say, now you owe 60,000 or 90,000 in student loans. When a family first applies to a school, that's not really something that a lot of students are thinking about. They're just thinking, hey, I have to go to this XYZ school. I don't care how I get in. I don't care how I pay. I just need to get in. And then suddenly 4 years goes by and they graduate with 90 grand in student loan debt or whatever it might be. And then reality hits and they go, did I really need to go to that school? Could I have gone to
Hmm.
the one closer to home and, or, the one that saved me more money and done just
Hmm.
as well? So we can really talk with families. Again, it's very unbiased on our part, but we can help them look at the bigger picture more than just discussing, how do I pay for the first year? Most families don't realize that, you have 4 years of income that the government's looking at. It's not just 1 year of income for those 4 years. They look at 4 different years. So that
Hmm.
can really change your 4 years of school and how you're going to pay for that if aid changes. So, you have to remember that it's not just that first year. And once they get into school, they're fine. They've got 3 more years after that first year. And so where are they going to live? What's the housing going to look like? What is that student loan payment or that parent loan payment going to look like 4 years from now when you do start paying it back? Can you
Hmm.
can you fit that into your budget? Um, so I think, just looking at summers, do you want to go home for the summer? Do you want to have a part-time job while you're on school in school? Do you want to go home and work for the summer? There's just so many different parts to discuss and ways to help pay for school. So I think that's again where, we just look at the bigger picture. So we're not just focused on making sure that that student goes to their perfect school. It's what fits best for the family and everybody.
Hmm.
Number eight is, again, this is more about putting a plan together, but a lot of families have to borrow. And, most families nowadays are probably having to borrow to help maintain tuition, housing, food. We can help families as a personal finance coach or college coach. We can help them put together a plan beyond borrowing to cover
Hmm.
their bill. So borrowing is one way to pay for college, but we again can talk with families about payment plans that schools offer, how to search for private scholarships. We can talk about negotiating for more scholarships, more merit scholarships. Maybe they can appeal for more need-based financial aid based on their situation. We can look at ways to save on things like books and housing, becoming a resident advisor, a resident assistant. So there's so many different ways to get help paying for college and ways to kind of help lower the bill. Sometimes borrowing may not be the best option. Sometimes it can be, based on interest rates and things. So, but that's one thing we do is again, we look at everything that you can do to get help. And a lot of families don't understand all the different options. So that's really where we come in handy.
Hmm.
Again, we discussed the pros and cons of borrowing, details around education loans. There's private loans, there's federal loans, there are parent loans, there are student loans. There's, you can consolidate, you can refinance. There's loan forgiveness. There's different repayment options in student loans. The interest rates are different. Some have fees, some don't. Borrowing is it's a big deal, knowing what you're going to pay when you leave, using those calculators. So we as college finance coaches, we can really discuss the pros and cons of borrowing. Again, it's very unbiased. We don't go one way or the other and say, hey, this one's better. It's what's best for the family. And then
Hmm.
we discuss all the details around that so that they can make a more informed decision. And then the other great thing, again, if you're not eligible for need-based aid, we can help you figure out how to target schools that might offer merit scholarships to your family, how to put together a strong college list, which is, again, what admissions people really are good for, is those college lists. But we can kind of help with that in terms of what might be the best schools to apply to get some good merit, academic merit scholarships. What are the schools that we should look at for that? And then once we do get that scholarship, how do we go back to the school and ask for more? There are
Mm-hmm.
so many families I talk to daily that don't understand that that's something that you can do. You can
Mm-hmm.
go back to a school admissions office and say, hey, we've applied to all these schools and we've gotten more from some. Is there any way you can give us some more? So that's another great reason, because we do have, good, not necessarily insider information, but we have good information from our history of working with schools and families that we can really talk about how to put together a strong list, how to target merit scholarships, and how to really negotiate with schools to see if you can get more.
Mm-hmm. All right, great. I think
That's my
like
10 list.
the very, very thorough top 10 list. I want to say too, for people, that if you want more detail about the different elements, we have like a full segment on negotiating. We have full
Yeah,
segments on a lot of these topics. So go back into
absolutely.
blog.getintocollege.com and you can find a lot of this information, links to the videos, etc. So, all right. Well,
Absolutely.
thank you so much, Chrissy.
Thanks, Sally.
All right. So next I'll be welcoming Michael Yeager and Molly O'Connor.